I have a history of chronic tension patterns, which create a lot of neck pain, back pain. I've got some TMJ issues. And I first discovered Feldenkrais when I lived in Oxford in the UK. And I got so far with it. And, it helped. And then I forgot it. And then I moved to Australia and I hit the same wall of pain and stiffness and chronic postural habits. And I think I was at a seminar and somebody mentioned it and I just began it again and I haven't stopped this time. And I find it's an ever deepening journey. And what I love about it, it gives you the tools to help your own body rather than thinking you're a lost cause and there's nothing you can do apart from go to somebody to fix you.
Our view of pain corresponds very well with, I think, the current thinking in chronic pain, and in that a lot of the aspects of chronic pain have become secondary issues. So, for example, someone who's had pain for a very long time starts to move differently. Their brain has become, in a way, scared of pain. So the brain's natural response to that is to kind of splint movement and to stop movement because of this fear of excess movement or activity bringing on more pain. Now, this in itself is an issue because if we hold ourselves very still, and we all know this from sitting on a plane for a long time, that in itself can be quite painful. And it is also not good for the tissues of the body. The tissues of the body need movement to be healthy, to get the right kind of blood and all those sorts of things. So this whole scenario of chronic pain, limiting movement, the brain becoming fearful of movement, therefore the person restricts their activities, is a vicious cycle that we feel in Feldenkrais we deal with really effectively. We can help people to learn for themselves what actually is painful and what isn't painful, and ways that they can move out of their pain, if you like.
Well, there are two ways you can experience Feldenkrais. One is you can go to a practitioner for a one-on-one treatment, which of course is probably the most powerful, and they will work with you very gently with their hands to feel into what your habits are, how your body's moving, and to encourage the body to feel its way, perhaps let's say, into more efficient and less effortful patterns. So it may be just gently guiding your neck a certain way and helping you to connect bits of your body, because so often, most of us have really stiff ribs and that stuffs everything up. It means you can't lift your shoulder properly, then your neck goes, that can affect your hips. So it's a very gentle way of guiding you to feel your body. And you'd work on a specific kind of theme. So that can be really powerful, but you can also go, and I think it's called an ATM, Awareness Through Movement, to a class where you're one of, 8 or 10. And you typically have a mat on the floor and the practitioner would guide you. And, you could spend a whole lesson just working on your C5 in your neck. And it's very gentle, so it's not like yoga, it's not like Pilates. We're not building strength, we're creating awareness of how we're moving. And it's just like you think you've got it, you think, oh yeah, Feldenkrais is it, and then you go to a class and you think, oh my God. So if I lie on my front and I raise my shoulder that way, I can actually let my neck drop. Wow. It is just, and you come out of the class feeling lighter, taller, and just like your whole nervous system has relaxed.
Yeah, the awareness through movement lessons, and we find they're particularly useful for people with pain because you come in and you lie on the floor and you're doing the movements yourself. You're in charge of the movements. You're learning to pay attention to yourself and make decisions for yourself. And then when you stand up and move and go back into your daily routine, you feel things that are easier and you feel more confident. And the power of that is that nobody's touched you. You haven't taken medication. You haven't, had any intervention. You've learned for yourself. So we find our clients feel very encouraged by this, something that we call self-efficacy. They learn to think, actually, I can help myself. They learn these skills so that not only when they're lying on the floor and they learn how to deconstruct these movements and feel, then maybe when they're sitting in the car and they're feeling a bit painful, then they can apply those same kind of principles. and they can actually get themselves out of tricky situations, as they get more proficient. So because we have this learning sort of paradigm, this learning approach, people feel more confident, that they're not being fixed by somebody else or some process or some, medication, but they actually feel like, I'm getting the tools that I can learn myself. And as their confidence grows and they get more awareness, that's why we call it awareness through movement, they can tap into more positive sensations and use more problem-solving approaches to their activities and their functions.
So to put that in perspective, I actually first experienced neck pain from madly hunching over my books at school when I was about 11. It came and went. When I got my first job in my 20s, I got what I call office computer-based pains, and then I did gradually get stiffer. So although I dabbled in Feldenkrais sort of in my late 30s, I've really come to it properly in my 40s. And what I've found is it has stopped me, I am able to alleviate. Sometimes, look, I may have a chronic headache sometimes, and because I've just been tense, or it could be other factors, but there's something you can do with Feldenkrais, which is to a really simple movement where you separate the movement of your eyes and your head. Because if we're staring at a screen, our necks are fixed. So things like that give you the tools to unravel some of your pain. So I would say that in the last 5 years, since I've restarted doing it, it's enabled me to lessen the pain, the frequency of the pain, the intensity of the pain. And now really what you were asking before about sustainability, now I'm trying to sort of preempt it, just move in ways that don't create, that the key is to move in ways that don't create the pain. And we are all such creatures of habit. So if we're stressed, and I don't know about you, but particularly if I'm under a time pressure, bang, I'm going to go into a necky, backy pattern. I'm going to forget to breathe, and it's all going to come back. And I don't think we can ever completely overcome that. But it's learning in the meantime to have these tools, and it really can make a huge difference, Feldenkrais.
The second approach that we use is called functional integration, and this is a one-to-one approach. So you would go to the practitioner individually, and again, we call them lessons because we still have this learning approach, but you would most likely lie down or be in a certain position, and the practitioner would actually use their hands to move you. So in the class, their voice will guide you to do certain explorations. In this one-to-one session, mostly it's done through touch. And Feldenkrais practitioners spend 4 years learning how to use their hands, using their voice first in the classes and then their hands to guide people through this process of deconstructing movements and building them back up into different functions that are relevant for the person. So, for example, I might have a client who comes in and says, I get a lot of pain when I'm standing in the bank, the queue at the bank, for example, when I have to stand for a long time. So then we'll look at different ways of, what muscles are you engaging, how are you holding yourself when you're standing that are, possibly bringing about this pain. So the pain itself becomes background, and what we're really looking at is the foreground, the movements, the activities that people want to do. And again, this is really useful for a brain that tends to want to obsess about the pain. So people enjoy these individual lessons. They're actually very, they calm people's system down a lot because we move people very gently and very slowly. So people often will feel better simply from the nice level of touch that we have. But then again, we're also interested in this learning approach, that people will learn to feel something differently. So we might move somebody's legs in certain ways, and again, it's a whole body approach. So you might have your pain in your big toe, and we might be working, with your shoulder or your head or something, because what we want is for the person to integrate the whole movement, and we want them to spread their attention and learn to feel the whole of themselves and not be focused on the one bit that's the problem. I mean, the evidence base for Feldenkrais is growing, like a lot of other relatively new approaches. There have been quite a few studies done internationally that looked at people with different kinds of issues, multiple sclerosis or pain from trauma or pain from industrial activity, so people working in factories. And they've been very positive, showing that people who undertake a course of Feldenkrais, what we're most interested in is that their function improves. They can work again, or they can do the activities that they wanted to do. And obviously for the people in pain, what they want also is for their pain to be reduced. We've started some studies in Australia that also show that clients of practitioners across Australia all reported both factors, the improved function, so that the functions that they'd nominated were their goals, that they got easier, and importantly that their pain got less. And also on these scales of, as I mentioned, self-efficacy, that people feel more empowered, they feel more confident to try things. So that's what we're particularly excited about, this evidence that's emerging that seems that we can break the vicious cycle.